Okay, I am live and I am hoping that the volume here is good enough. I think I might be slightly. Okay, I think we are about there. I'm going to try and my sound and hope. I think I'm maxed out. There we go. Hopefully that's better. I guess I'll find out. I will find out at the end whether this is working correctly or not. But the aim of this live stream essentially is to add value. My hope is that by the end of this video, that you are able to just move yourself closer to getting your production business where you want it to be. It is a continuous journey. There are always things that come up where it goes great, but there are also those things that are a struggle. So one of the questions that's come in from, I think, let me just double check this here. Ocubex asks, how do you position yourself when you start your production company? Positioning yourself as a production company is something that's absolutely key. It's really, really important. But why? The reality of it is that, there are so many different production companies throughout the world. Perhaps you're based in a major city, and in the major city where you are, there's just so many other production companies that everything is just totally saturated. The market seems to be totally saturated, and you're trying to work out how to build your production company, but you're also trying to work out how do you increase your rates. One of the ways that you do that is by positioning yourself in the correct way. Just so you know, for those of you that aren't familiar with myself, I'm the owner of an agency called Vivida. We are a creative storytelling agency. Here on YouTube, I like to try and share my thoughts, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the struggles and the hustles. So you may have enjoyed already videos that look at how to increase your rates and your prices. If not, please take a look at that. There's another video as well, just giving my thoughts on how to build a production company. Feel free also to dig into that. And of course, we appreciate any subscribers that we have so that we can keep this content going and continue to spend some time on it. Hi, everybody. Please feel free to drop your messages in the comments box. I can see it here. I'm new at this. I'm live streaming right now. Hey, Andy, how you doing? Doing good in the studio. So as a creative or as a production company, how do you kind of position yourself? The key thing is that you have to work out eventually what you want to do and what you are best at. But the reason you're positioning yourself, as I say, is to differentiate yourself between yourself and other people. If there is a lineup of production companies, and it could be in weddings, it could be that you work with corporate and events, it could be that you're a director of photography. And if there's a lineup of people, you want that person who's got the money in pocket to say it's you. And that's always been my aim, is I want people to go, you know something, I want to go with Simeon Quarry, or I want to go with Vivida. But I have to help them along that journey. I've got to help them to work out how and why they should choose me, or how and why they should choose you. When I did this really well was when I was doing weddings. At the beginning, when I was doing weddings, I was very, very specific about the type of work that I wanted to do. So I knew I wanted to do creative work that was a bit out there. It was maybe not the typical type of work that you would see associated with weddings. So I knew what work I wanted to do. And then as a result, I knew what target audience that type of work would appeal, who it would appeal to. Once I knew who it would appeal to, then I had to position myself in their way so that they would see me, and then so that they would want to interact with me. So when we look at positioning ourselves, you just think about the word. It's about how you place yourself and where you place yourself. Okay, so if you look at a marketplace, you don't just say I'm a filmmaker or I'm a photographer. Then you exist, but what you're not doing is you're not positioning yourself. So I had to look at myself as a business back when I was doing weddings and decide, okay, if I'm going to be in the city with all this footfall and traffic, i.e. people wanting photography and video services, where will I position myself? So therefore, I had to decide who is it that I want to be in front of. I decided that I wanted to be in the higher end market. Okay, I wanted to work with people that had money to spend, but they wanted to spend it on my type of quirky creativity. The audience I decided at the time was the Asian marketplace. I wanted to do big, fat Asian weddings. And once I knew that, I was then in a position to position my brand, position my offering, position my portfolio so that they would bump into me. They would look at what I was doing and the business was doing, and they would like it. And then they would then buy. Essentially, I would increase their conversion rate, or my conversion rate. However, I've also struggled when I have been just the generic storyteller. So one of the reasons that the Vivida brand is being reshaped at the moment, we've done really well over the last 3-4 years as we've moved out of weddings and into corporate commercial production. But where I've noticed that I've struggled at times is with that not having that clarity of voice, not having a clear tone of voice, and not knowing where to position myself. Because when I walked out of weddings, I've been thinking, well, you know something, I'm happy to take any business in the commercial arena. I don't mind working with a small business, with a large business. I don't care if I'm filming in Africa, if I'm working for a corporation on an animation. I want it all. And perhaps you are in the same position. In fact, I would love, if any of you have any comments, drop them please into the comments, and I would love your own feedback as well. Is it just me that feels like this, even if you're watching us on replay? So I've been in that situation whereby I'm kind of thinking, I don't really know what I represent. I don't really know what I want to do. So therefore, I'm not in a position to position myself. Does that make sense? Unless you know and you have clarity on exactly what you want to do, then you cannot position yourself. And as a result, your offering will be weak or weaker. And in a way, at times, I think that's absolutely okay. I think that's absolutely fine. Whilst I got married to the first woman I fell in love with, I know that essentially what a lot will do is essentially they may have relationships that are a little bit more casual, or perhaps let's say you date, or officially you may court lots of individuals, and then over time you may decide, once you decide, okay, this is the type of individual I like, this is what I've fallen in love with, you are the person I want to spend the rest of my life with, then you get married, right? And bear with me. From a business point of view, at the beginning, I don't think you really know what you like. Okay, you're trying to find your way. You love, you love holding a camera. You love shooting. You love creating. You understand that. But the problem is that you don't yet know what you like. So you go for a period of time whereby you have to firstly decide what it is that you like by trying lots of different things. So over the course of the last few years, I've been involved in lots of animations. Been involved in virtual reality. I've been involved working with large corporations through to working with charities. I've done shoots in Africa with people, shoots in Africa with landscapes, right, and animals. So one thing I learned there is I realized, look, I just don't like shooting. I don't like capturing naturally animals, right, or wildlife. I was in Africa with Canon, and they said, can you do a shoot with the Masai Mara? Yes. Can you also take the same opportunity to record and document the beautiful nature that was there? And the bit when I kind of started to shoot the animals, no, not shoot the animals, I don't mean that. When I started to document and record the zebras and the elephants and the beautiful sunsets, I enjoyed it because I enjoyed the experience like any other tourist would, but it didn't feed my soul in the same way that when I was standing in front of James, the prince of the Maasai warriors in his particular tribe, and I was taking his portrait and I was lighting it and I was telling and documenting that story, I fell in love with that stuff. So now the clients that I look for, sure, I may involve some form of landscape or wildlife, but it's not the core crux of what I'm producing. Thank you, Old Shoe Films. Really appreciate that. I'm preaching. Thank you to those comments that are coming in as well. Hey, how you doing, Simon? Good to see you. We are live right now, and we are talking about the subject of positioning your company, your production company, or positioning yourself as a creative. I'm loving these questions as well. Apps for productivity in business. But you know something, that's a great one. And I think what I'm going to try and do is I may see fix 8 films if I can just blast you a few suggestions towards the end of this stream. But I think that deserves a stream in itself. And I'm currently working with the Blackmagic web presenter. I literally plugged it in today. I believe that if I buy the upgrade, which is the front panel, I should be able to switch between what I have on computer and myself here on video. Right now, I don't have that capability, but I'm going to try and do that. So thank you to those of you who are dropping in during the course of this recording. That's awesome. To those of you who are watching live right now, thank you to those of you who have taken the time to like this video as well, and to those of you who have subscribed. So just going back to talking about positioning your production company, if you don't know what you like doing, you can probably more easily work out what you do not like doing. Maybe you look at, in fact, do this. Look at the clients that you've had. Work out which clients have been an absolute pain in the buttocks and what type of clients you have really enjoyed working with. Now, is it down to the work that you were doing? Or is it down to the type of personality and with the company that you're dealing with? Perhaps you've worked with a large corporation and you've absolutely hated it. And perhaps you've loved working with charitable sector. Maybe you've loved working with the corporate sector and you've navigated your way through that. Perhaps you love working with couples, but only a certain type of couples. Do you know, I remember when I was doing weddings, the couples that were the richest, wealthiest were also, for me, the hardest to deal with. So our balance sheet would look great when we signed that check, or they handed us a check and I banked it. But it was much, much more difficult for me to service them as a customer because they were perhaps extremely demanding, or perhaps their view of what I was doing was marred by the fact that they could simply afford it. I found that the type of customer that really worked well for me when I was doing weddings back in the day was actually the type of type of couple that had to save up, right? And it was essentially their life savings that they were putting towards maybe the production of the photo and the video. They were the ones that would listen to me and listen to the team as we started to shape them. Now, the wealthiest couples, they would as well, absolutely. But there was just a different type of experience. The way they would communicate with me would be very different. So then I started to target and position myself to attract not the highest end customers, but those who were high end, but had a real appreciation for the art and for the creativity. They weren't just choosing us because of our name. Okay, and because they wanted to hold up the badge and said, we got Vivida there, or we've got Simi Inquiry there. And that's exactly the same, no matter what type of work you're doing. Look at the clientele that maybe you've worked with in the past and decide if that is the type of business that you want to work with. Maybe you've dealt with customers that, they go after change after change after change once you've edited the video, or perhaps you've taken some imagery and they want you to retouch and retouch and retouch, and you're losing yourself, okay? In fact, I found actually some of the hardest clients to deal with are not the richest, wealthiest. No, actually, it's the people where you end up negotiating so hard with them that it's the people that either you do for almost free or almost free, or they've heavily negotiated you down. And as a result, they just do not have that much respect for you any longer as an individual or as a business, and life afterwards is absolutely hell. So then what you start to do is you start to reposition your business so that you do not have to deal with that type of client anymore, okay? Simon says, I agree. The smaller the business, the more relaxed and free talking they tend to be. That can absolutely be true. It can be that you can find the type of business that you're looking to work with. So For us, we're working right now with some large corporations, and sometimes the creativity that we have to employ and work with is not our most creative, right? Because they've got brand values and they've got structure. And so we've just finished creating an animation for Sky, and it's going to be used internally within the organization. But we had a style template that we had to work with that decided the way we would communicate. It would also decide the type of illustration that we would use. And then now we've put together the video using any creativity that we are able to use and to input, which is still significant. We now have to wait for the brand police to decide whether it is stylistically exactly in point, in line with the other creatives that's been done before us. Then we also having to go through the legal team and let the legal team look at the work that we've created to work out if it's suitable. In fact, the first iteration of the video was almost approved, but then the legal team had to say, look, I'm sorry, you need to make these changes. So we had to go back part to the drawing board again. And actually, I quite enjoy that process. I quite like that, but for others, that's an absolute nightmare. Sometimes, as Simon says, if you want to have total free control, then perhaps the largest, biggest businesses are not the way forward for you. Or perhaps being a director of photography, whereby you have a director working and an agency, may not be what you want. So you have to work out those things and then start to position yourself. You also have to work out, before you position yourself as well, work out where the money is. Okay. Sometimes the money that you need to survive as a business or as an individual is not the free-flowing, carefree, as Simon says, smaller business that's extremely relaxed, okay? Perhaps because they don't have much to lose. And because they don't have that much to lose, sure, you get to go creative and do your own thing, but as a result, they're not paying you as much for the privilege. So you have to work out whether that's where you need to position yourself. Perhaps at the beginning, if you don't have a portfolio that shows the creativity that you want to show, going small at the beginning may be the right thing to do, which may lead you to position yourself at the beginning in one place. But then after a particular point in time, you then reposition yourself, right? Reposition yourself once you've got what you need after 6 months or a year. Okay, so repositioning becomes key. And in fact, some of what we're doing here with Vivida is we are repositioning ourselves now. And people, my friend said to me, Sanjay from iJogya, amazing wedding photographer, who's watched what we've been doing is we've moved out the space that he was working in and moved working with corporate and commercial. It's like, how many times do you rebrand and change your identity? And the truth of the matter is we continuously reposition ourselves. One, as I start to understand what I like and what I do not like, as I start to understand what I represent and do not represent, and as I start to understand where I need to make the money. Okay, so I will, and also what I enjoy is I position, stay, get what I need, analyze again, reposition, and that process constantly continues. And perhaps that's something that you can look at yourself. I'm going to now just drop into the comments. Thank you, those of you who are joining me here on this live stream. Really appreciate those of you who, whilst watching, have taken the time to like, and those of you who have taken a moment just to comment or to subscribe. D says, let me just take a look at this. He says, he or she, forgive me, because I don't actually know if it's a he or a she from the comments here. Do you find working with larger corporations, you end up having far too many edit reviews? I charge per extra review after this first or second. And they get that as part of the service to make them consider each review with far more consideration. Okay, so key point here, absolutely at times, if they're going to multiple reviews, we may consider adding a charge. I think that partly depends on the experience that you want to create for your client. We position ourselves at Vivida as partly problem solvers. And as we go through, this is a little bit of a dance and a little bit of a conversation. So things change. I think the thing that we don't mind revisions as much, it's changing the scope of the project that we're always wary of. And there is a difference. Revisions, making amendments and making refinements and changes, okay? Then looking and changing the scope, that really is changing what you're creating. So the key is when you start off working with a business in a production, so I'm going on to another point here, what we try and do is we try and lay out very clearly what our creative approach is going to be. And that's what we get signed off. If things change massively in quite a strategic way, in a real creative way, we look at it from a couple of points of view. Is this change going to benefit the creative eye? It's going to become better, and it's going to be something that we're going to be able to show, and it's going to make sense for all of us. Or is it just a change of output that's come far too late? And at those times we charge. So yes, we have done changes on projects that have been 4 and 5 figure. Okay. So thousands and thousands when we've almost completed the project and the clients come back to us and said, hey, you know something, we would like to add an additional minute here, or we would like to change this voiceover and this, and this. And we'll go, look, we got sign off on this before. So what we then did, yes, is we charged for it. However, there are those times when what we want to do is we want to have a great working relationship with the client, which we always want to do, but it just makes sense to make those little refinements and edits because it makes sense for the project and for the relationship. So we always are balancing that, and we're thinking about it as an investment as well. Does this make sense from an investment point of view? And yes, you are right. Some of those things come into play when you start to deal with larger corporations. What happens when you start to deal with larger businesses is that there tend to be more decision makers involved in the process. So as you position your company, work out what type of process are you willing to go through. If you want to just shoot, bash and get it out, then you have to decide that in advance. So hopefully that helps in answering your question. And we are live right now. So I'm just bouncing off, looking at any little thoughts and notes I had. Would love your own thoughts on this subject matter. If any of you have got any tips and things that you think would help to position or reposition a business. So when you position your production company, also think about, once you decide where you want to be, okay, what type of work you want to do, you then know who you need to attract. Then you start to form your brand in a way that communicates and reflects that audience. That might affect the way you appear, yes. And I mean that from a web, print, as well as the way you appear. I'm dressed in okay. I should have thought about this in advance. But, we look at how we dress. So, for example, when I'm positioning myself, I remember thinking, right, I want to position myself as the real creative. The creative spark is going to come from Simeon and Vivida. So I used to have just multicolored trousers. So I would have a wardrobe with purple, orange, pink, yellow, green. And I used to always change those trousers, right? Even when I was working with banking clients, I would be very smart, but I would have a smart casual with a massive splash of color. It would allow me to get noticed. And it would be memorable to them, and I would fulfill that vision that they had of being the creative. So that's how I was positioning myself as an individual, and then also how I was positioning myself as a brand. There we go. Okay, we've got a comment coming from Simon. Simon went to video school recently, went through marketing directors. Okay, so a fair few adjustments were required, Simon says, to the videos that he was creating, because certain business structures require lots of decision makers to go through. And as they go through all those different people, they all have their own points of view. The key is to take control. That's one of the ways we've also started to position ourselves as well, is we take control. So we don't just leave it to the company that we're working with to just creatively go for it. We position ourselves as if, look, we know what we're doing. We have the expertise, right? Think of this, right? If you were to hire a solicitor or a lawyer to argue a certain case for you, would you give your lawyer or solicitor the argument and tell them exactly how they should do it? The answer would be no, right? The answer would be no. You have paid them to use their expertise and their knowledge. So you have listening ears, and you accept what it is that they have to say, and you allow them to act on it. So from a business point of view, we try and position ourselves so that we have the creative knowledge, the storytelling expertise, and we charge for that. So it's not just a production, it's a thought process as well. And our brand position ourselves in that way. And I don't mean just the website, right? I just mean everything from the proposal through to the way we communicate to the way we are inside meetings. The downside to positioning yourself in that way is that you become partly legally responsible for the content that is within. When I say legally, okay, from a marketing point of view, if you put your expertise in that place, in that position, then you live and you die by the creation that you put together. You live and die by the script that you recommend and you suggest and you sign off. Perhaps that's not what you want to do. Perhaps you're not ready for that at this stage. So you decide on your position right now. I'm loving these comments coming in, and thank you so much to those of you who have been sticking with. We are in the Vivida studio right now. We are based just outside of London and also in central London in the Shard. I cannot afford a huge studio space in the Shard, which is actually the tallest building, I think, in the UK. I think it's taller than Canary Wharf, yes. So we have a space there where Matt, if you're watching, and the rest of the team will work from there. Some will work from home. And then this is the studio space that I enjoy working and filming in and shooting in, as well as some of the other team as well. Just hopping back to your questions now, just because I'm coming to the end of my thoughts on positioning your production company, because I'm running live. But hopefully prompted by some of you as well. Fixate Film says, marketing is always the foot in for larger companies. Fixate Films, that could be taken as two ways. It could be that the marketing departments are the way in, or it could mean that your own marketing is the way in. When it comes to corporations and companies, marketing departments are a way in. They may hold the bigger purse strings because you may automatically think of them having advertising and marketing budgets. However, there are lots of other areas within businesses that have their own budgets that are not part of marketing. So internal communications, for example, is one that we tap into a lot. All right, there are other specific departments that still need video content or photographs taken, but they're not part of the core marketing function. So marketing is a way in, but it's not the only way in. If it's the other way around, Fixate Films, so what you're saying is that marketing is always a foot in, your own marketing. Yes, I would agree with you. Putting yourself out there in the right way, that's part of positioning. Positioning yourself is also to do with your marketing. So do you put yourself out there? LinkedIn, it could be your social media through Instagram, if that's where your clients are, or Facebook, or your advertising. What messages do you put out there? And what do people see? The way you show yourself as a brand, as a business, from a logo, from a website, from where you meet your clients, that is all your positioning, okay? So we work out where we meet clients. Is one of the reasons that we have the Shard, is because we want to position ourselves in a certain place. So we have our business based in a certain place and location. Let's take a look at some of the other questions and thoughts. Keep them coming, people. We're running at 28 minutes. I thought this was just going to be a few minutes. So thank you so much for joining in. How do you like the setup? I have a feeling that this setup is going to change every time I shoot, because it depends on what we're doing in the studio. We were doing a real low-key shoot on Friday, so everything was totally blacked out. And as a result, you're seeing a space that is totally blacked out. But I hope you like the setup. Let me know how the volume is for you. This is totally new to me. I am a live stream on YouTube newbie, unless I've been doing it for clients. But hey, just dropping in here on some of these comments. Really appreciate that. Okay, so what would you suggest being the most effective way of forming new relationships with corporate clients? That is a good question. Ken, your mic goes in and out as you move around. Can I just check? I know the software says that this is the microphone. Is this the microphone? Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Or is the microphone coming from somewhere else? I think it's coming from here. I think it's coming from here. I have no headphones plugged in. I'd probably broken a number of rules of production. The problem is when I went live, it was live, and there was nothing I could do. So targeting corporations. Damn good question. And it's something that we're always monitoring. I think what you've got to look at is you've got to look at how the different ways in which you can reach people. I think one of the key ways is networking with people. It's the people you meet and the people you converse with. If you just stay within the four walls, then what you have to, you're not going to meet people. The best thing to do is to get out there. So on Tuesday last week, I went to an awards ceremony, so I was invited. I could have been watching the England match, but instead I was at the Royal Albert Hall. I was invited along, and there on the table, as we were drinking and chatting, were people that actually, in future, maybe we might end up doing business. In fact, one large corporation, humongous corporation, said, you know something, on chatting to you here tonight, I think you've got what we need because you've got the necessary experience. Let's chat. And we've been on email during this week. The key thing is I put myself out there, put myself out of the comfort zone. So I think this is actually would be an amazing secondary video. So I'm going to try and remember this this comment and try and see if we can do another video on it. So I think one key way, just to touch on one, is to try and talk to as many people as possible. Get out from behind the desk, get out from behind the camera. If you are shooting events, don't just be the camera operator. The mistake I used to make when I was shooting live events, people would only see me at times like this. And I would always be concentrating, always looking for the shot. And as a result, when I'm like this, I'm very, very unapproachable. No one is going to speak to this individual here, even if they want to. They might be thinking, wow, look at how they're searching for the moment. Or if I'm filming, look how they're looking for the right type of shot. But if I'm always got my concentration face on and I'm always looking at the screen, then there's never any meaningful conversations that could come from those who end up being potential. So what I had to try and work at is I had to try and work at game face, right? Shooting, concentrating, but also being approachable. And also when I spending a lot of time actually not recording, press record, shoot, but then stop recording. Hey, how you doing? You're doing good. And I would chat to them. Tell me, what do you do? Oh, cool. Yeah, and then we do this and the other. I'm just going to capture this shot, but I'm going to come back to you. Is that okay? And then I would carry on recording. Oh, that was a great shot. That was, yeah. And that's what I was recording. Oh, nice, really good, really cool. So anyway, to tell me more. So that became something that was absolutely key. A hallelujah moment there from Hans. Thank you very much. And so that was kind of that was key, right? Was just to keep that balance. So always look out for those opportunities just to try and have the conversation. Andy, are you still with us? The message we have here, we have written a paragraph about our ideal clients, and it's a really great way to identify who your client is and what it is that you want to do with them. And you often tweak that. So Andy's suggestion is absolutely key. That's absolutely correct. I did a similar exercise, Andy. What I ended up doing is, we actually made a list of all the clients that we are working with right now, and we worked out which ones we loved, and then we worked out what it is we loved about them. Was it that they were a software company, or was it a value structure that they had? Okay. Was it an attitude? Was it a particular age? Was it down to the location that they were based? And from that, we started to create a list of people that we would like to work with. And that at the moment is in a way what we are chiseling away at. At the moment for Vivida, we've not so much linked it to exact companies that we want to work with. What we've defined is we've defined the values that our new client for 2019. 2018, but I'm thinking ahead, 2019, what are those values going to be? And we define them. And in fact, when we create a proposal, that proposal essentially has those values in there. So we actually say within our proposals, we like to work with companies who are like this. And they're thinking to themselves, do they qualify? Okay, so maybe that's something that you can do as well. Okay, thank you, Hans, for your enthusiasm. Really appreciate the enthusiasm on the comments there, Hans Holtz. I think it's pronounced as Dequan Coleman. Mr. Coleman or Miss Coleman, I can't tell, forgive me, so many names, different places. I currently shoot weddings and corporate videos, but this is a larger project and I need advice. I probably need a little bit, I need to look at the previous message. I'm on it, I'm reading it right now. We are live, so forgive me, and also thank you for your patience as well. How to price for a documentary that will be shot over multiple days in different countries. Whew. Okay, we're coming on to a pricing question. Do you mind, people? I know we are live. Thank you to those of you who have been watching so far, looking at the subject of positioning your business and your company. We now are kind of taking questions now because we're probably about to draw to a close soon. But the question is so how do you price yourself when you're looking at shooting a documentary? First thing is, actually, it sounds wrong, but it's credible. And does the organization have budget? Do you know what their budget is? If not, ask them. You may be surprised. Sometimes we've asked that question and we have realized that the budget that they were thinking of was so tiny, so small that it wasn't worth putting the effort in the first place to create a proposal. Then we've also found others whose budgets far exceeded what we were expecting. Now, it didn't mean that we just went and just took the additional money. No, what it meant it meant that we could cut our production and formulate the production and the crew in a way that made sense and suited the budget. It also helped us to understand the expectation that they had. So we always ask that question. We always ask the question, what's your budget? If we're not getting any of that information, maybe what we might do is you might say our prices start from, or our prices range from this to this. Watch for facial expression. It's telling, okay? Our prices start from, I don't know, 1,000 to 6,000. Yeah, sure, cool, that sounds good. Yeah, that's fine, it's in the region. Okay, now you know what you're working with. Our prices start from 5,000 to 60,000. Okay, the bottom of that sounds fine, but the top doesn't. Or actually, yeah, we're looking at something in the middle. So sometimes just ask that question straight out. If you're working in weddings, at least you might have an idea of what your normal rate would be based on days. Post-production may change in comparison to what you're used to. Look at things like the number of crew involved. But you know something also, think about, is this the type of work that you want to be getting? Is it something that you should be investing in? Because, you know, look, from a budgetary point of view, it might be a great money earner, or it might not be such a money earner, but the portfolio is going to be really useful to you. Perhaps your wedding client will change their perception of you because you've shot a documentary. This dude, this team, they've shot a documentary, right? So they're well qualified to do our wedding, even though reality is it probably spins the other way. So look at things in that way as well. Let me see if there's any other comments coming in. Hans is trolling. Yes, we appreciate Hans. Let me just see if I can put this user in timeout. Oh, I love it. I've just put Hans in timeout. Welcome to Going Live. Anyone who mistreats the comment box and the chat box will be eliminated. So thank you. That's just added some clarity there. So I appreciate that. Gone. So I really hope that this session has been really useful. Thank you to those of you who have joined. Please, if you are watching this in replay and you like this video, please, I really appreciate any likes, also any comments in terms of questions that we can use for future sessions. How's the live session worked out for you? Do you enjoy it being live? Or do you prefer it when it's pre-recorded? I mean, the benefit for me is I haven't had to think too much other than just laying something out and then it's done. I don't have to edit. I'm liking that. So that's really cool. So really appreciate that. Whatever you do this week, keep progressing, keep growing, keep having fun, and work out what you can do in order to push your business forward. Every Monday, I try and think about, in fact, every Sunday night, try and think about what things we need to achieve this week that's just going to move things incrementally forward. And just remember that, you know, your progress, you may not think you're making much progress. You may not really think that you're growing, but it's actually only when you look back that you realize how much you've grown. Just like when you watch a young child growing up, You don't notice those tiny incremental changes. But what happens is when you look back, you realize that, my goodness, look at where they were and look at where they are now. And you'll be thinking, well, look at where I was and look at where I am now. So thank you very much to those of you who have participated and been involved. Get back to work, right? Now, how do I end this live stream?